A 7-year-old girl. 41 pounds. Starving. Days from organ failure. And she used her last breath of strength to push a 280-pound Hells Angels road captain out of the path of a speeding truck. 4:47 p.m. South Phoenix, Arizona. Outside a food bank where hope comes in cardboard boxes and prayer. The truck missed him by inches. Crashed into a storefront. But Paloma Reyes lay motionless on the pavement, her tiny body crumpled like discarded paper. And when Dante, Goliath, cross-cradled her broken form in his massive arms, when he begged to know why would you do this, you don't even know me, her whispered answer before losing consciousness shattered him, because, you're somebody's, daddy. Stop scrolling right now. What you're about to witness will break your heart and restore your faith in humanity at the same time. This starving little girl gave everything to save a stranger, and when you discover why, you'll understand why over 2 million people have subscribed to Biker's Flair. If you believe that love and sacrifice still exist in this broken world, hit that subscribe button now. Turn on notifications because this story will haunt you in the most beautiful way. Only 2% of you are subscribed, don't be part of the problem. Subscribe for Paloma. South Phoenix, Arizona. One of the poorest neighborhoods in the entire state. Where summer heat doesn't just beat down, it punishes. 108 degrees that Thursday afternoon, the kind of heat that makes asphalt shimmer like water that isn't there, that makes breathing feel like inhaling glass. Streets lined with struggling families. Broken sidewalks. Chain-link fences holding back nothing but despair. And on Madison Street, St. Augustine's Community Food Bank served over 400 families every single week. 400 families who knew what it meant to choose between electricity and groceries, between medicine and rent, between eating today and eating tomorrow. The neighborhood was plagued by homelessness, by hunger that gnawed at children's bellies while they tried to focus in school, by a desperation so thick you could taste it in the air alongside the exhaust fumes and the smell of hot concrete baking in relentless sun. You could see the economic devastation everywhere, in the boarded-up storefronts, in the families waiting in lines that stretched around corners, in the eyes of mothers who'd run out of answers for their children's questions about why there's nothing for dinner again. This is where Paloma Reyes lived. 7 years old. 41 pounds when she should have weighed 60. Living in an abandoned trailer with her 4-year-old brother Mateo, hiding from a system that would separate them, surviving on scraps and hope and a love so fierce it was killing her. They'd been on the streets for 6 months, ever since their mother Rosa disappeared. 6 months of Paloma being mother and father and protector to a little boy who asked questions she couldn't answer. Where's Mama? When are we going home? Why am I hungry? Paloma's eyes were sunken, shadowed with exhaustion no child should know. Her clothes hung on her skeletal frame 3 sizes too big, donations from a shelter they'd stayed at once, before Paloma decided hiding was safer than risking separation. Her hair, once thick and dark, had started to thin. Her skin bruised if you touched it too hard. She was dying, slowly, invisibly, in a city full of people too busy surviving their own disasters to notice hers. And Dante, Goliath, cross? He was 52 years old, 6'4", 280 pounds of muscle and leather and tattoos that told stories most people didn't want to hear. Hells Angels road captain. A man whose reputation preceded him like thunder before a storm. A man who'd lost his 8-year-old daughter Luna to leukemia 3 years ago, and the grief had carved him hollow. But what nobody knew, what he never advertised, what he kept secret even from most of his club, was that every Thursday afternoon, Dante volunteered at St. Augustine's Food Bank. It was his therapy. His penance. His way of honoring Luna's memory through service instead of through the rage and pain that threatened to swallow him whole. He never wore his colors when he volunteered. Didn't want to intimidate people who were already scared of everything. Didn't want recognition or praise or anything except the quiet satisfaction of knowing he'd helped someone eat that day, helped some grandmother carry her boxes, made some crying baby laugh by making ridiculous faces until the mother smiled too. For 8 weeks, Paloma had been watching him from across the street. Too afraid to approach. Too ashamed of being homeless and dirty and desperate. But she watched. She saw him gently help elderly people who moved slow, their bodies betraying them. Saw him make children laugh with silly voices and magic tricks with coins. Saw him carry boxes for struggling mothers whose arms were already full of babies and worry. She saw him give his own sandwich to a teenager who looked hungry, watched him pretend he wasn't hungry himself when anyone could see he was. She never approached him. But she learned from him. Learned that kindness was action, not words. Learned that big scary men could have soft hearts. Learned that helping others was worth doing even when you had nothing yourself. Today, Paloma hadn't eaten in 4 days. Mateo hadn't eaten in 2, and only because Paloma had given him the last of what little they'd found. She'd walked 3 miles in 108-degree heat to reach the food bank, her vision blurring, her legs shaking, her body screaming at her to stop, to rest, to give up. But she'd arrived 10 minutes after closing. 10 minutes too late. The doors were locked. The food was gone. And her last strength was fading like water through cupped hands. She sat on the curb across from the food bank, watching Dante load the final boxes into a van. Watching him move with that careful gentleness big men develop when they're tired of people being afraid. And that's when she noticed the delivery truck speeding down the street, the driver's head down, looking at his phone instead of the road. The truck was veering. Veering directly toward Dante, who was bent over tying his boot, completely unaware. Paloma's starving brain calculated with mathematical certainty, that truck would kill him in 4 seconds. 4 seconds, and this kind man who'd made so many people smile would be dead on the pavement. Her thought process happened in slow motion, each second stretching like taffy. He has a daughter somewhere, someone waiting, like Mateo waits for me. She'd heard Dante talk to another volunteer once about his little girl. Heard the love in his voice. Heard the grief. She'd want him safe, Paloma thought. Someone loves him. Someone needs him. The decision made itself. Paloma used the last of her strength she'd been saving to walk back to Mateo, strength her body couldn't afford to spend, and she sprinted across that street. Her malnourished body moved on pure willpower, on love stronger than survival instinct. She slammed into Dante with her 41-pound frame. The impact barely moved his massive body, but it moved it enough, 18 inches to the side. 18 inches that meant the difference between death and breath. The truck missed Dante by less than a foot. It crushed the parking meter where he'd been standing half a second earlier, metal screaming against metal, glass exploding, the sound of impact making everyone in a 2-block radius turn and stare. Paloma crumpled to the pavement like a puppet with cut strings. Her last strength spent. Her body shutting down. Done. Dante caught her before her head could crack against concrete, his combat instincts faster than thought. What? He gasped, staring at the wreckage, at this impossibly small child who just saved his life. Why? Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Paloma's eyes fluttered. Her lips moved. And the words that came out, barely a whisper, barely there at all, because, you're somebody's daddy. Then nothing. Consciousness gone. Body limp. Witnesses screamed. Someone called 911. The crowd gathered like moths to flame, horrified and fascinated. But Dante heard nothing except that whisper echoing in his skull. Because you're somebody's daddy. This child, this stranger, had seen him as someone worth saving, not for who he was, but for who he belonged to. Paramedics arrived within minutes. This child is in critical condition, the lead medic announced, voice tight with professional concern that barely masked horror. Severe malnutrition. Dehydration. She's days, maybe hours from organ failure. Dante refused to let go of Paloma. I'm riding with her, he growled. Nobody argues. Nobody did. Something in his voice, in his eyes, said this wasn't negotiable. In the ambulance, as machines beeped and 4 lines were inserted into Paloma's collapsing veins, she drifted in and out of consciousness. And in one of those moments of heartbreaking clarity, she whispered, "Mateo, alone, trailer park, blue door, please." Dante leaned close. "Who's Mateo? Where's your mother?" "Brother, he's 4. I'm all he has, please don't let them separate us." Her eyes rolled back. She was gone again, swallowed by darkness. "If you're crying right now, you're not alone. Paloma was starving, dying, and she still put someone else first. But here's what breaks my heart, 87% of you watching haven't subscribed. This little girl gave everything for a stranger. Can you give a simple click? Subscribe to Biker's Flair right now. Hit that like button if this story is wrecking you. Share it because someone needs to see what real sacrifice looks like. Comment for Paloma if you believe children like her deserve better. Don't you dare scroll past without subscribing. The emergency room at Phoenix General Hospital became a war zone of controlled chaos. Doctors stabilized Paloma with 4 fluids, with nutrients her body had forgotten existed, with monitoring equipment that beeped steady warnings about how close to the edge she was. The diagnosis came back brutal: weeks of starvation, her body beginning the process of shutting down non-essential systems to preserve the brain and heart. Another day without intervention and organ failure would have been irreversible. Dante made calls. To his club. To his contacts in law enforcement. To anyone who could help him find this little boy named Mateo before night fell and something terrible happened. Police searched the trailer park Paloma had described, the abandoned one on the south side where homeless families squatted in units without water or power. They found 4-year-old Mateo hiding in a cabinet, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days, also malnourished but in better condition than his sister. The evidence of Paloma's sacrifice was everywhere in that trailer. Every food scrap, every crumb, every bit of sustenance had been given to Mateo. Her own stomach had been empty for so long the medical examiner said it had started to atrophy. She'd been systematically starving herself to keep her brother alive. Child Protective Services arrived at the hospital with their clipboards and their protocols and their well-meaning inadequacy. They wanted to separate the children into different foster homes. "There's no placement available that can take both," the caseworker explained apologetically. "We'll try to keep them in the same district." Dante's response was a growl that made everyone in the corridor step back. "Over my dead body." That night, in Paloma's hospital room while she slept under sedation, Dante found her backpack that police had brought from the scene. Inside, he found drawings. Journal entries. A photograph. The drawings were of him. Dozens of them. Stick figure Dante helping people at the food bank, each one labeled with observations in careful, childish handwriting. He smiled at the crying baby until she laughed. He carried all the boxes for the old man with the cane. He gave his sandwich to the teenager who looked hungry. The journal entries were misspelled, heartbreaking. "He comes every Thursday. He doesn't know people are watching but I see. He's good." Mateo asked why I don't ask the big man for help. I said because good people are busy helping others. We can't bother him. Today I'm so hungry I can't think. But the big man was there and he made a little girl smile. Her daddy must be so proud. Dante's hands shook reading those words. This child had been documenting his kindness while starving to death. Had been too ashamed of her situation to ask for help while literally dying. Then he found the photograph at the bottom of the backpack. Crumpled. Worn from being handled. The image showed Dante with his daughter Luna at the food bank 3 years ago, both smiling, Luna holding a donated stuffed animal she'd insisted on giving to another child. On the back, in adult handwriting that wasn't Paloma's, were words that stopped Dante's heart: "To Luna's daddy, thank you for helping my family. You told me to pay it forward. I will. Rosa Reyes, 2022-inch. Rosa Reyes. Paloma's mother. Memory flooded back like a dam breaking. 3 years ago. A woman, pregnant, homeless, desperate, had come to the food bank. Rosa. She'd been so scared, so ashamed. Dante had helped her, not just with food, but with finding housing, job training, medical care for her pregnancy. Had checked on her for months until she was stable. Until she was safe. She'd named her son Mateo, she'd told him later, in honor of his kindness. Mateo meant, gift of God, in Spanish, and she'd said Dante was hers. Rosa had been paying it forward for 3 years. Volunteering. Helping others. Living the lesson Dante had taught her about lifting people up. And 6 months ago, she'd disappeared. The missing person case was still open, still unsolved. Dante collapsed in the hospital corridor, photograph clutched in his trembling hands. This starving child had saved him because he'd once saved her mother. Paloma had been watching him, learning from him, trying to be like him. She'd sacrificed herself for him because she'd witnessed him sacrifice for others. The cycle of kindness had come full circle in the most devastating, beautiful way imaginable. Hospital staff found him sobbing, this massive, tattooed road captain, crying like his heart was being torn out. She's Rosa's baby, he gasped. Rosa, who I helped, she's paying forward what I started, and I didn't even know. The weight of it crushed him. His act of kindness years ago had created a child who'd rather die than let someone else suffer. Dante called an emergency meeting with his Hell's Angels chapter. 40-plus members showed up within the hour, filling the hospital parking lot with chrome and leather and loyalty. He explained everything, the sacrifice, the starvation, the little boy, the missing mother, the photograph, all of it. This little girl gave her life for me, Dante said, his voice raw. I'm not letting the system swallow her and her brother. I'm not letting them be separated and traumatized and lost in foster care shuffle. The chapter voted unanimously. Dante would petition for emergency foster custody. The club would support him financially and logistically. Lawyers were mobilized. Paperwork was expedited. The Hell's Angels machine, usually associated with intimidation and fear, activated for pure, undiluted good. The social worker was initially skeptical. A biker? She asked carefully. Raising 2 severely traumatized children? Dante's response was simple and devastating. I've already raised 1 daughter. Lost her to cancer. These kids lost their mother. We're all broken. But broken people can still build something beautiful. And if you think I'm letting Paloma wake up in a world where she's been separated from the brother she starved herself to protect, you're gonna have to go through me and 40 Hell's Angels to make it happen. The social worker approved the emergency placement. 4 days later, Paloma woke up. Her first words, before her eyes even fully focused, Mateo? Where's Mateo? Dante, who hadn't left the hospital, brought Mateo into the room. The nurses had bent the rules because some things are more important than protocol. The siblings reunited with tears and desperate hugs, both of them crying, Mateo climbing into Paloma's hospital bed and curling into her side like he'd done every night in that cold trailer. Paloma looked up at Dante with eyes that had seen too much. I'm sorry I pushed you. I didn't mean to be bad. Dante, tears streaming down his face, knelt beside the bed. Bad? Baby girl, you're the best person I've ever met. The bravest. The kindest. You're a hero. Are they going to take Mateo away? No, sweetheart. You're both coming home with me. Both of you. Together. Paloma's tears came harder. But we're not your family. Yes, Dante said firmly. You are. Family isn't just blood, little one. It's who shows up. Who sacrifices? Who loves even when it costs everything? You showed me that. Then he showed her the photograph. Explained that he'd known her mother. That Rosa had told him about her babies, had shown him pictures, had talked about how proud she was of her brave little girl. Paloma's face crumpled. Mama told me about you. She said you were an angel with tattoos. She said if I ever needed help and couldn't find her, should look for the man with the kind eyes who rode a loud motorcycle. Dante broke. Just completely broke. Your mama was paying forward the kindness I showed her. And you did the same for me. Even while you were starving. Even when you had every reason to save yourself. Mama always said, see someone who needs help. You help them. Even if you need help too. You were dying, Dante whispered. You could barely stand. And you still saved me. Paloma's answer was simple, pure, devastating, because you're somebody's daddy. Even if she's in heaven now, she'd want you safe. Luna would want her daddy safe. Stop. Just stop. If you're not subscribed to Biker's Flair after hearing this, I don't know what to tell you. Paloma was dying and she still chose love. She still chose sacrifice. Honor her story by subscribing right now. Smash that like button if this made you cry. Share this video because the world needs to see what pure goodness looks like. Comment below, what would you have sacrificed? And if you've been blessed in life, this is your reminder to pay it forward. Subscribe. Do it now. For Paloma. For Mateo. For every child who needs an angel with tattoos. 3 months later, the transformation was miraculous. The court approved Dante's emergency foster custody with an expedited path to adoption. Paloma and Mateo were living in Dante's home, 3 bedrooms, stable, warm, safe. A home that smelled like cooking instead of mold, that had running water and electricity and all the invisible things poverty steals. Paloma's weight climbed back to a healthy range. Her hair grew thick again. Her smile, which had been extinct, returned slowly like a sunrise you weren't sure would come. Mateo called Dante Tod, Uncle D, which made Dante's heart hurt in the best way every single time. Both children were in therapy, working through trauma that would take years to fully process. But they were healing. Together. Safe. Hell's Angels chapter members rotated, Uncle Duty, rides to school, helping with homework, teaching life skills, showing up for soccer games and parent-teacher conferences. These dangerous, tattooed bikers became the most devoted, protective family those kids could have asked for. And then came the twist nobody saw coming. The investigation into Rosa's disappearance gained traction because of Paloma's story. The media attention brought tips. Witnesses. Evidence. They found Rosa alive. She'd suffered a traumatic brain injury in a hit-and-run accident 6 months earlier, had been in a hospital under Jane Doe status with no identification, no memory, no way to tell anyone who she was or who was waiting for her. But seeing Paloma's story on the news triggered something. Partial memory return. Fragments of her babies, of Dante, of the life she'd lost. The reunion was every emotion at once. Rosa, in a wheelchair, still recovering, meeting Dante again. Seeing her children safe, healthy, loved. Learning that the man she'd honored with her son's name had saved her babies the way he'd once saved her. Rosa's recovery would take years. Her brain injury was severe. But she was alive, and she was fighting, and she could be part of her children's lives even if she couldn't be their primary caregiver. Paloma's bravery had brought her mother back from the dead. Dante created the Luna and Rosa Foundation, named for his daughter and the woman who taught her children to pay forward kindness. The foundation served homeless families and children, provided emergency resources, fought to keep siblings together in foster care. Paloma's story inspired over 50 foster placements in the Phoenix area. Hell's Angels chapters across the United States increased their volunteer work. Community perception shifted. Bikers were no longer just seen as threats, but as protectors, as family, as proof that you can't judge a book by its leather cover. The food bank saw a 300% increase in donations. Local schools started Pay It Forward programs in Paloma's honor, teaching children that kindness multiplies, that sacrifice matters, that one small act of courage can change everything. 1 year later, the adoption was finalized. Paloma Rosa Cross and Mateo Dante Cross. Legally, officially, permanently family. The celebration was held at St. Augustine's Food Bank, the same place where it all began, where a starving child had learned what real goodness looked like. 500 Hells Angels rode in formation to honor Paloma, their engines roaring like thunder, like applause, like a promise that she would never be alone again. Paloma, now healthy and thriving, helped distribute food alongside Dante. She wore a small leather vest, child-sized, with a patch that read, Honorary Angel. Rosa attended in her wheelchair with nurses, crying happy tears, watching her babies flourish. One afternoon, Dante took Paloma to visit Luna's grave. They brought flowers, pink roses, Luna's favorite. Paloma placed them carefully on the headstone and said, her voice soft but sure, "Thank you for sharing your daddy with us, Luna. He tells me about you every night. I think you and my mama are friends in heaven. I think you're both watching us and smiling." Dante's voice broke. "Luna would have loved you, baby girl. You're exactly the kind of brave she was." Paloma looked up at him, this man who'd become her father through choice rather than blood. Daddy, do you think Mama knew? When you helped her years ago? That saving her would save me?" Dante pulled her close. "I think kindness always knows where it's going, even when we don't. I think your mama and I were part of something bigger than us. And I think Luna and your mama are somewhere together, proud of you, proud of us, proud that love won." They walked away from that cemetery together, Dante, Paloma, and Mateo. A family forged from tragedy, bound by sacrifice, proof that sometimes the most broken people build the most beautiful things. If you've made it this far without subscribing, what are you waiting for? Paloma used her last breath to save someone else. The least you can do is tap that subscribe button. Hit like if this story changed something in you. Share this video because stories of real sacrifice are rare and precious. Comment, "I will pay it forward," and tell us one way you'll honor Paloma's example this week. Subscribe to Biker's Flair for more stories that prove humanity is still worth believing in. We don't chase viral trends, we share real stories of real heroes. That subscribe button? Hit it now. For Paloma, who gave everything when she had nothing. For Mateo, who never gave up hope. For Dante, who proves that angels come in leather and tattoos. For Rosa, who taught her children that love is action. Subscribe right now.